You sick bastards. It's Friday night after midnight. Welcome to the Hot Death Horror Podcast. The inaugural episode numero uno. And tonight we're going to go ahead and just plug the shit out of my movie, The Spoken, with my special guest here, my little brother, Mr. Dakota Grayhawk, who played Miles Richardson and did a fantastic job at it. Fucking nailed it. So,
thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, man. Thank you for agreeing to be a part of it with me, and thanks for coming on the first episode of the podcast. When I was starting this thing, I thought, I can't think of a better guest to have on the first episode than my own brother, who did the movie with me and all that. So yeah, man, thank you and welcome. So yeah, we're just gonna get right into it and start talking about The Spoken. Just signed a distribution agreement, getting that distributed through POV Horror. It's probably going to be, a couple weeks before they get it live on their site. It could be sooner. And then he's going to get it distributed out to all the major streaming platforms, the Tubies and Plex and all those free apps of the world. But just for those that have not been caught up to speed yet. So The Spoken, again, it's my inaugural film. It's my very first one, my directorial debut, writing, acting, cinematography, editing, all my debut on everything. It is about, basically it's myself talking a whole bunch of shit and getting cursed, I guess is the right word, with a skinwalker. I talked some shit to a dude that I shouldn't have talked shit to, and ends up being a fun little trip with a skinwalker. Lots of folklore surrounding skinwalkers, Navajo folklore. They are, well, before we get into that, again, Dakota, thanks for being here. Why don't we, let's let you get a couple of words in and tell the folks a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what interests you about being in the film, and what did you like about it? What did you not like about it? If there was anything you didn't like about it, what intrigued you to be a part of that, and what makes you a horror fan? What are some of your favorite horror movies?
Well, to answer that last question, one of my favorite horror films of all time has got to be the Child's Play series. It was something that I was always kind of scared about as a kid, but like as I grew up, I always loved, just like I grew to love the character of Chucky and just like his crazy just brain and how he like fucks with everyone's lives, and especially with Andy Barkley and everything like that. Haven't seen the new series, but I've been really wanting to. But yeah, besides that, another favorite horror movie of mine is like It. I have to say, like the new 2017 rendition of it is really good. But yeah, sometimes it's just kind of fun to just scare yourself. Just sitting there late at night and just watching a movie and just having anticipation and just getting scared and seeing all that gore and blood on the screen. Sometimes it's just fun to have that experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then when you told me about you were going to do a movie, I was super excited. And like, the more you tell me about it, I was just so excited. Just like, oh, it's going to be about skinwalkers and like interactions with it. And I'm just like, this sounds right up my alley. This just sounds awesome. And then you asked me to be in the movie, and then I'm just like, okay, now I'm just even more excited. But yeah, uh, yeah, I'm just excited for your movie, and I can't wait for it to come out, honestly.
Well, that makes two of us, my friend. I wish I hadn't waited so long in life. I got a mosquito bite down here now that is all of a sudden bugging me. No pun intended, bugging me. yeah, I wish I hadn't waited so long in life to do something like this, to make a movie. I wrote a book years ago, back in 2014, 2015, something like that. Self-published it on Amazon. It was a novella. It wasn't a novel, just a little. It wasn't a short story by any means, because it was, it's about 100 pages, so not a full-length novel. But anyway, I did that, and that was fun, but it wasn't. It didn't fill that void. It didn't satisfy the hunger. The hunger. I'm a movie guy. I've always been a movie guy. That's kind of my shit. That's what I do. I'm pretty lazy at times. Like I've literally spent vacations just watching movies. Um, Horror especially. Horror has always been my thing. Kind of like you said. Sometimes it's fun. Just turn out the lights, crank up the sound, and just get into something bloody. Sometimes there's just nothing better than that. I also like to watch horror on my VR headset with the Dolby Atmos headphones on. I mean, you want to go for a different experience, man. That's the way to go.
That's something I've got to try. I haven't even tried that yet.
Oh man, yeah, it is. It's next level. It really is. It's totally next level. I haven't watched our movie that way yet, because I haven't, like, my editing and my final cut and all that it's done. But I sent it off to the distributor, and they're not going to do really any editing per se, but they are going to kind of just help clean it up if there's any spots that they see. They're going to polish it. Like I've gotten it pretty clean and nice. They're going to polish it up. They're going to make it. They're going to add that extra little chef's kiss, I guess, at the end. And I mean, for being a micro budget, no budget film, there's only so much you can do. Plus, it's supposed to look kind of grainy and shitty because it's a found footage.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to look like a Hollywood produced big budget, piece of cinematic excellence. It's supposed to look homemade and grainy and shitty, and there's parts of it that I wanted to look pretty good, and then there are parts of it that I really did want it to look kind of extra shitty, and I think I achieved that, especially towards the end. Like I really wanted the ending bits, without giving any spoilers. I really wanted that to look as authentic and homemade as possible, so that it actually took more work to make it look shitty than it did to make the less shitty stuff look nice, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like it was more, it felt like there was more heavy editing involved to make it look shitty. But it was fun. It was a whole lot of fun. I wish I'd had a whole bunch more money to spend on it. I can't say I wish I had more time, because I kind of had all the time in the world, but it just, I wanted to take my time with it and make a quality story, but I also didn't want to take years and years to do this thing, because then, you get to a point where it's like, you kind of just have to say, fuck it. Like, I'm happy with it. This is the end of it. This is what I'm going to edit. This is going to be the final cut, and I'm done. Because I kept doing that, going through editing and all that. It was like, I don't like this part. I'm going to redo that. So then I'd redo it. And then it's like, no, I like the other one better. And you kind of just get to a point where you have to just say, you know what, fuck it. That's it. I'm sticking with it. That's the final product. Yeah. Your scene in particular, you and I, we had what it take us 5-6 times to get that damn video call right.
Yeah.
My equipment was being such a piece of crap. I don't know what was going on. It took us a couple of different tries. Like, we didn't do it all in one day. Yeah, we recorded the video, but not the audio, and it was becoming a nightmare, because I'm like, why is everything working but this?
Yeah.
It wasn't getting frustrating, I would say, because I wasn't getting upset and frustrated with it. I was kind of like, what the fuck? Why is this doing this? Yeah, so, but the scene you and I did, I mean, like I said, man, you nailed it. It was It was great. It was a fun scene to write. It was a fun scene to act out with you. I hopefully it'll bring a little tension to the movie, because that's what it was intended to do, was not to be a super intense scene, but I mean it was meant to build a little bit of tension to the story. But what was your experience with it? What did you like about acting out that scene and the character of Miles Richardson? I think I sent you the final copy as a screener. I'm not sure if you made it all the way through to the end or not, but I added a little extra to your character at the end there.
Mm. I,
I don't.
I don't know if I got that yet, but uh, well, it was kind of different because usually I have been in a few things in regards to acting before, but it was mostly just like stage plays and things like that. I was in like one movie back in my freshman year of high school, but that film is lost forever. I don't know where it's at. Uh, so it was kind of interesting. It was something different that I haven't done before because, like, again, I've acted in front of like on stage in front of like live people before, and so doing like a found footage movie where it's just going to be kind of like an interview thing between you and me, that was a really different experience, and it was something that was really cool because like it kind of allowed me to really uh, act out as if it was a natural conversation like we are having right now. It was just something really
Mhm.
interesting because everything else was like scripted, and yes, of course, I was uh, acting out of script, but I could have, but it could still feel natural to the audience and to us. So it was definitely a really fun experience, I think.
Well, good, man. I'm glad you had fun with it for sure. Because yeah, it was a lot of fun having you on board for it. And I got mixed reviews on it. Because I sent out the screener to probably 8 to 10 people. Not a whole bunch. You don't want to send it out to too many. You don't want to send it out to too few. You can,
Yeah,
between 7 to 10 is kind of the sweet spot from what I've heard. So I sent it out, and I mean, these are just like random people, from found footage horror groups on Facebook, friends of friends type of deal. Hey, I want to check out my movie. Here's a screener. Let me know what you think. And then delete it so people can't share it and leak it and whatnot. And I mean, all the reviews were positive. Actually, not one person said, "Yeah, your movie blows." Not one person said that, and I would hope somebody would tell me honestly if it was, not just trying to be nice or whatever. Like I want all the reviews. Of course, I want the good reviews, but I want all of them. I want people to tell me, yes, you know, this wasn't for me. Like nobody told me that, so that was good. Most of it, if I had to pick any negatives, most of the negative feedback I got was the audio. I mean, it took me forever to get that damn audio right, because in some scenes, like I'm sure you've been watching a TV show or a movie before where it's like, a really important dialogue piece and they're like, and then all of a sudden shit blows up and it's like, it's,
yeah,
deafening. That's what was going on in the movie. It was the audio was just mismatched so bad, so I had to go back and tweak that so many times. Like I wanted to chuck my iPad out the window on several occasions because that damn audio. Um, and then one other person did say that it was. They didn't say it was slow, but they were. I told them, I said, this is a. It's not it's not super packed with intense, jump scares and things like that. Like it's definitely not a slow burn, and it's definitely not, just a subtle horror. It's kind of a mix between both. It is dialogue heavy. I warned a couple people about that. Like I was pretty heavy on the dialogue because I wanted the story to be told the way I wanted to tell it. I didn't want to skimp on the story of the Skinwalker. So it was pretty dialogue heavy, with the podcast scenes and things like that. It was pretty dialogue heavy, but it definitely wasn't a slow burn because there were other scenes where there was stuff going on. Um, but I did get that feedback from one guy that he's like, yeah, it was, there were some parts where I think probably could have been a little shorter. And I agree after watching, because I've watched it 20 times myself now, just, doing all the final edits and things. And I agree. Like the opening podcast scene with just me, I probably could have cut 2 or 3 minutes out of that. I probably could have shaved off 2 or 3 minutes out of every podcast scene, but again, I didn't want to. There was crucial pieces to the story in every bit of those podcasts. So, and then one person did say that our scene, they said, the dude that played Miles, like he did a really good job, but somebody a little older probably could have sold it a little better. Which I was like, yeah, I mean that's fair. He's a young guy.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
But yeah, but I mean, it's not unrealistic for somebody your age to be teaching, at a college level.
No, definitely not.
So yeah, yeah. It's not like I threw a gray wig on you and said play an 80-year-old man. Like,
Yeah.
so but again, that's all it was he's like, the guy, he's like, he did great. And then he asked me too, he goes, is he related to you? I said, yeah, I mean, he's my brother. Like, I thought I clarified that. He's like, no, you didn't. I'm like, oh yeah, that's my brother. He goes, okay, I could totally tell you guys are related. He goes, no, man, he did great. It just, somebody a little older probably could have sold it better. He goes, but it wasn't a bad thing, So I take that as a compliment for you. Cause again, it's hard to sell a role like that, to play a college level, like professor type person,
Yeah.
It took some creativity on your part, and you were committed to it, man. You did a really good job, and I was really happy with your performance. I thought you did fantastic, and I couldn't have thought of a better person to play the character of Miles, than you, considering all the stuff you and I have in common, and with horror, and just not just horror, but just things in general, science and all that. So yeah, you definitely nailed that part, and for future films to come, I hope you'll consider being in future films as well.
Well, this will probably be a little bit of a hot take, a little bit of an unpopular opinion, but I am glad that you and the other person really liked my performance, because after watching the movie, I'm gonna be honest with you, I kind of felt like I was a little bit out of place, honestly, because like everyone like did such a great performance, you and everyone, and I'm just like, yeah, it is a little bit weird to see this kind of younger guy not as good as acting as the other people. Like, I didn't think I did a terrible job, but I just felt like I'm just like, it's a little bit out of place, but it was. I still really enjoyed doing the scene, and yeah.
Yeah, no, you definitely didn't feel or look out of place to me. Again, yeah, you're a young guy, and it's what's the right word? It's not far-fetched, it's not unrealistic to think that you could actually be teaching at a college level. Is it likely? Probably not, for someone to have a whole bunch of experience in the cryptozoology field. But again, I know dick about cryptozoology other than, they study cryptic matter and things like that. So, for someone your age to be an expert in cryptozoology, I mean, you could have started when you were 12 years old and gotten credits throughout high school. And I mean, I know people, personally, that have done stuff like that. Like, they started doing college work in high school and then gotten degrees, 4-year degrees 2 years into college because they started in high school. So it's not unrealistic. You definitely didn't feel or look out of place to me. And it was great. And I wouldn't have changed it at all. So definitely don't second guess yourself on it, because again, you did great. And at the end of the day, it's your first movie. It's my first movie. Like, we're not going to win any Oscars off of it. It's not going to be anything like that. And also, there's, we did something not a lot of people can actually say they did. We made a
Yeah.
movie. You know, you starred in a movie. Whether that movie goes on to be, the next big, oh my God, this is the scariest film of the year, or, it gets 2 thumbs down from freaking everybody, doesn't matter. We did it. You starred in it. I made it. Like that's all. That's all that matters. And this one, honestly, this one was. I mean, yes, it's for the fans. I want people to like it, of course. I don't want people to hate the movie. But there's another director out there, another filmmaker, Dylan Brown. He gave me some really solid advice. He's the one that I kind of consulted with the most throughout the whole process. Him, Ash Hamilton, Josh Brucker, Michael Rock, who actually starred in the film. But Dylan Brown, that dude, he made Tahoe Joe, The Flock, The Devil's Children. He's got a new one coming out, Ghost. It's not released yet as of this podcast episode. That movie's not released yet, but it will be July 9th on POV Horror and Wicked Horror TV. Same place as my movie's going to be released. And I mean, number one, he's a phenomenal guy. He's badass. Like couldn't ask for a more genuine, nicer dude. Like he could have told me to go fuck myself right out the gate, but he didn't. But he gave me a good piece of advice, and he said, no matter what, at the end of the day, make sure it's a movie that you love, that you're proud of, because ultimately it's for you. You made it for you. Yes, you want people to like it, because why, don't why else would you make a movie to throw out in public if you just flat out didn't care? But ultimately, do it for you. And that's what I had to keep in my mind the whole time. Every time I would get caught up in it was, oh, I hope this scene doesn't take too much flack, or I hope not too many people hate this, because I'm going to be honest with you, there was a lot of times where I was, writing it, and as we were filming it, I'm like, I don't know if people are going to like this, but then I just had to remind myself, okay, you know what? Don't worry about that. I like it. I love it. It's something I'm proud of. It's something that I'm ready to release to the world. And, if people love it, they love it. If they hate it, they hate it. I'm not going to say I don't care, because I do. I absolutely do care. But it's not going to break my heart if more people hate it than people love it. Because at the end of the day, it was for me, it was for you, it was for, it was for us to just say we did it. Now, the next however many movies I make, like I'm gonna put a little bit more into them. I'm hoping to get a little bit of a bigger budget for future films. Like I've already got the next one brewing up here. I've started writing it. I've kind of got a concept going. I'm not fully committed to what it's actually going to be about yet, but it's, I've got the general idea brewing. And I think it's something people will really like. So all my movies I am going to make for me, but the next however many, I am going to focus a little bit more on, what people like, what people don't like. I'm going to read, reviews of other films. I'm going to dig into trends and, see what the graphs have to say as far as this, this seems to be what people like the most, and this seems to be what people hate the most. Like I am going to follow that a little more closely with future films, because I want to be a known name. I'm not going to just keep making movies for nobody to ever know who I am. Like I want people to know who I am for sure. And I want to put something out there for people's enjoyment, because that's what I love. Like you said, I love to sit down and throw on a scary movie in the dark and be entertained, even if I'm not scared, or, even if I'm not on the edge of my seat biting my nails going, oh my goodness, like I like to be entertained by a movie. So that's what I want to do. I want to be able to bring that kind of enjoyment to people, and that's kind of why I'm doing the podcast too. I want to have another outlet. If people think my movies suck, maybe they'll like my podcast, or vice versa. They think the podcast sucks, maybe they'll like my movies. I don't know, but I just figured it. I'm at that point in my life where it's time to just say fuck it, do what I want to do. I've spent my whole life working and being miserable for a lot of different companies, and I still work a day job now. Like, I have a full-time job. This isn't what I do full time. This is just what I do for fun. Um, would I like for it to be a career? Yeah, that'd be cool, but it's going to take a lot of work to get there. Um, but anyway, I've kind of gone off the rails on all that. Um, so yeah, the Spoken coming soon to POV Horror, and then hopefully soon to follow, it'll be on things like Tubi and other streaming apps. Hopefully, that's not for sure, but hopefully. So now, the Spoken, yes, it's about skinwalkers, the Navajo lore of skinwalkers. They are traditionally they're people that kind of practice black magic. They decide they no longer want to conform to the tribal beliefs, and they want to selfishly do harm to other people or whatever. And that's kind of how they start out being, like, they're actual people, from what I understand. Like, yes, they're spirit skinwalkers, which is kind of what the movie is about. It's like an evil entity, like a Native American demon kind of thing. Like, I might have embellished it a little bit, but it's my interpretation of what I think a skinwalker would actually be. Um, but there's different variations of skinwalker. Like, there's the Navajo skinwalker, which is the shapeshifter, the trickster, which I kind of talk about a little bit in the movie. They're the ones that are like a human that decide to turn bad, whether they be a shaman or whatever. They turn evil, and that's their intent, is just to do evil and do harm and things like that. And they have to kill somebody close to them, whether it be a family member or something. That's part of the lore, is they have to do that in order to complete, like, the transition to a skinwalker. And once they complete that transition, that's when they're able to shapeshift. And usually it's like a wolf or a coyote or a bear, a deer. Those are like the common ones. I had to do quite a bit of research on skinwalkers, because I didn't, like I said, I wanted to put my own adaptation on it, but I didn't want to completely just make shit up. I kind of wanted to go with what the actual lore was. But I mean, what about your interpretation of the Skinwalker? Anything ever intrigued you about him?
Well, I must admit, first of all, that I don't know as much about skinwalkers as you do. I definitely don't know that much, but yeah, I always like heard stories um from like other people, and like uh just like about and just like real horror stories about like them meeting like face to face with the skinwalker. And uh what I think is just kind of interesting is just kind of like the mystery of it all. Which is something that I kind of got from the movie, is that like there's like kind of like you can kind of have a basic understanding of their powers. Like, yeah, they can turn into different animals and things like that, but like you don't really know the full extent of their powers. And that's what I think, that's what kind of intrigues me most about them, is that like you really don't know if it's really a skinwalker until you like really come into contact with one. And it's just kind of terrifying when you actually are there, and it's just like, oh shit, that this is real, this is happening. uh,
Mm-hmm.
a coworker of mine actually told me a story. He was he was really young, but he was little, and he was outside on his trampoline, and it was really dark. And then like something was like clawing underneath the trampoline. And at first he just thought it was like a dog, and then he heard this like really deep growl kind of sound that was nothing like a dog could ever make. And then then he knew it wasn't a dog, and it was some very much different. Uh, and then he said that his dad came out with a gun and started shooting at it. And then the next day, his dad told him that it was a skinwalker that he came into contact with. And I'm just sitting there, I'm just like, that that's that's probably just really terrifying, that you can't see it, it's dark, and you just hear this deep growl sound, especially when you're at the age he was, because he was like really young, and I don't know, it's terrifying, I think. But
Yeah, no, they are, man. Like they're absolutely terrifying, and I don't think they get enough love. They really don't. Like everybody knows about Bigfoot. Everybody knows about Loch Ness. Everybody knows about Mothman. Like there's the famous cryptids, you know. And yeah, skinwalkers are pretty popular, but they don't get enough love in the horror genre. Like there's hardly any
yeah,
movies about them. You know, there's that really popular TV show about the, you know, the Skinwalker Ranch or whatever on TV, and I mean that's a great freaking show. I watch it, and that's a really good show. It takes place right by you.
yeah, right here in
Um,
Utah, yeah.
fun fact, yeah, yeah, fun fact. Well, not just Utah, like it's right by Vernal. Um, so yeah, fun fact: my movie, uh, the story, the story, about the woman. Again, I don't want to give away spoilers, but there's a certain story in the movie, that that I tell on the podcast and in the intro scene, um, takes place in Vernal. I kind of did that on purpose because that seems to be the hot spot for like Skinwalker lore, because that's literally where Skinwalker Ranch is. And again, you know, Skinwalker Ranch folks, I wasn't putting Skinwalker Ranch in the movie. You know, none of that. It just I wanted to use that part of the world, because that seems to be kind of the hot spot for that particular cryptid. New Mexico is another big one because that's kind of Navajo Nation, is, you know, New Mexico and that whole area. So that's kind of why I did that. But yeah, man, like I don't know how much you knew about that, but the actual Skinwalker Ranch, it's I mean it's not in Vernal obviously, but it's up there somewhere. I don't know exactly where. I forget the name of the town or whatever where it's at, but it's I mean it's you could probably walk there if you wanted to. Like it
Yeah.
is so close to you. Like I'm legit jealous. You know, being that I live down here in Houston and you live right there in Utah. Like that's I mean, have you thought about it? Like have any of your buddies ever done any dares or like let's try and get on the property? Like don't do it, by the way, you'll get shot. But I'm just saying, like what, you know, any of your buddies, any kind of high school stories when you were back in high school, that, you know, anybody talk about that area? Anybody have any
I
experience
didn't
around
really hear
there?
much about it in high school, but when I was a little bit younger, I remember hanging out with my sister and a couple of her friends, and they were always talking about Skinwalker Ranch. We lived more in the Salt Lake area around this time, but like we were talking about Skinwalker Ranch, and just like yeah, some of them were actually talking about like wanting to go there at some point. Uh, yeah, so I never really heard much about it in high school per se, but I have heard about it, and I have heard that it's like really close by here, and yeah, it's a really interesting location, and yeah, definitely like the show really goes more into deep about that. But actually, one thing I remember this one time uh when I was little, I can't remember. We were driving home, and it was my sister and my mom and me, and we saw this like really huge, like just like this huge like orange cat, like it was way bigger than a cat should be. And then like uh we asked dad when we got home, and he said that was definitely a skinwalker. So I probably came into contact with one at one point, but I don't know.
Hmm. You probably did. I mean, being in that part of the world, that I wouldn't doubt it, because I mean, you guys do have mountains and things around there. I don't know about up near your neck of the woods, but I know they're all throughout Utah. There's the Wasatch Mountains, and there's the I don't know. There's other mountain ranges in Utah. So I mean, possibility of it being a mountain lion, maybe, but I mean, you say it. if it looked like a big, deranged looking cat, like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was probably a fucking skinwalker, man. Like, around that area, I would not doubt it for a second that it's a skinwalker. Like, despite what my character in the movie portrayed, like, I played kind of
Yeah.
an asshole in the movie. Despite what my character was portrayed as in the movie, I do happen to believe in that kind of shit. Like, I'm all about all the folklore. Like, skinwalkers, yep, I believe it. Sign me up. Aliens, yep. And that's another thing. Aliens, like, you're part of that's kind of Skinwalker Ranch. It's weird that they named it Skinwalker Ranch too, because they went into it a little bit in the show, but it seems to be more like alien paranormal type activity that takes place on that property than actual, skinwalker stuff. But again, like you said, we don't really know what these things are capable of because we're not privy to that information because the Navajo keep it under, tight lip. They keep it under wraps. Like they won't talk to anybody about it. That part in the movie was not bullshit. Like I actually did reach out to some folks in the Navajo tribe. The Dene is what they call themselves. And I mean, again, that part in the movie was not bullshit. They are super kind, super great people, but they won't talk about it. They flat ass won't talk about it. If you're an outsider, they don't even like to talk about it with, amongst themselves because it's out of respect. Like that's one thing. Like that to me is what makes it truly terrifying. Like they don't talk about it because they're afraid of it. Because am I saying that right? They don't like to talk about it not because they're afraid of it, but because they respect it. Like that's some dad shit right there.
Yeah.
That's some man shit almost. Like that's like I'm not gonna walk up to my dad and punch him in the face, not because I'm scared of him, but because I respect him. But I am kind of scared of him too, because my dad would beat my ass. But I got the hiccups. But anyway, but yeah, they respect it enough to just not even talk about it. Yeah, you've seen interviews with some Navajo folks on some TV shows. Your ghost hunting shows and things like that. I've seen a few episodes where there are certain ones that'll talk about it, but when it gets time to actually go out to where they're supposed to be, they're like, no, I ain't going out there. Fuck that. Like, you can kiss my ass. You go by yourself and have a good time dying. I'm not going with you. So to kind of touch on what you were saying, yeah, we don't really know what they're capable of. And that was kind of my intent with the movie as well. That's why I didn't want to make it too paranormally, but I also didn't want to make it too like having a creature that you could see. I didn't want to make it too much either way. Because I mean, are they aliens? I don't know. We don't know. Are they spirits? Are they demons? We don't know. There's just not enough information about them, and maybe that's why they don't get enough love. Is because maybe there's just not enough information about them out there to really say what they actually are, and that again, if you're not terrified of that, then you're tougher than me, because that is truly terrifying to know that there is possibly a being out there that you don't know what it's capable of. Like, let that process for a minute, like I run across a bear in the wilderness. I know exactly what that fucking thing is capable of. He is capable of tackling me to the ground and eating my face in less than 2 seconds. Like those kinds of, like, I know what they're capable of. If Bigfoot's a real thing, he's probably capable of the exact same thing. He can eat my face really quickly, But a skinwalker, like you just don't know. You don't know what they're capable of. You kind of know what they look like, which the stories of skinwalkers, man, like some of the stuff I read while doing research on the movie, like literally gave me chills, like gave me goosebumps reading some of this stuff. Cause I'm like, my God, what kind of creature is this? And, there's some videos out there too. There's like TikTok videos and YouTube videos of, people recording shit that are like, oh my God, what is that? Hashtag skinwalker. Most of it's bullshit, because I don't know if you've seen like the the TikTok videos where
Yeah.
like my dog's a skinwalker. They like I've seen those. Those are pretty funny, but there's like actual legit videos out there of people filming shit. They're like, that has to be
Yeah.
a skinwalker. What else could it be?
A
Have you seen
few,
any of
but
those?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They're they're pretty terrifying to say the least. They are pretty damn terrifying. Um, so yeah, the Skinwalker. I'd like to think that maybe they are kind of related to aliens in a way. That's why I incorporated what I did in the film. I won't go too much into detail on that again, but that's why I kind of incorporated the other variation that I did because I personally believe that they could be in close relation to like aliens because why else is like New Mexico and Utah specifically are both extreme hotspots for UFO activity and alien activity, and they're also both extreme
Yeah.
hotspots for skinwalker activity. Like
Yeah,
that
there's gotta be a
cannot be a
connection there somewhere.
coincidence.
Especially like I'm sure you've heard, but
Right.
like remember that thing that happened I think a couple years ago, maybe yeah, it was a couple years ago, but like here in Utah, around the desert area, there were like these like huge like metal like poles that were just stuck in the ground and they just appeared one day. Uh like nobody knew where it came from. A lot of people speculated that it was like alien activity happening around. And it was actually close by here again. It wasn't here in Vernal, but like it was close by like more like in the mountain areas. And uh, then someone just decided to be a douchebag and decided to like piss where they were and then wrote on the metal poles some kind of message I forget, and then someone stole the poles. But yeah, it was like these huge poles that just appeared in the desert area surrounding in Utah, and it was yeah, no one knew where it came from.
Huh.
Oh.
No, I haven't heard of that at all. Like that. See, yeah, you're from there. Like you got all the good juicy shit. Like we could do all kinds of episodes on just this stuff because that. I mean, to me, that's fascinating as shit. Like stuff that has no explanation, like huge metal poles sticking out of the
Yeah.
ground. Like, why is that there? You know, like what did that? So yeah, there has to be a connection there. That can't be a coincidence that those two particular types of entities are in that same area and so prevalent. It's not like it's just a once in a while type thing. Like it is all the frickin' time. Like, and it's documented. That's the thing too. There's Area
Yeah.
51 for God's sake. There's Roswell. Like there's documented evidence of shit going down in Utah and New Mexico and all. Like it's a real thing. Like stuff has happened there. And then for skinwalkers to be incorporated in that and be another huge thing like that, that's not a coincidence, man. Like that's not a coincidence at all. I don't think. Maybe I'm just being a conspiracy theorist. I don't know, but I don't think it's a coincidence. I don't think it's a conspiracy. And you live in that part of the world, so you might be a little more, I guess I'll say, in tune or a little more adapted to it. But like every time I visit Utah, I get I feel energy coming from that place. Like I can't explain it, but going to like Salt Lake, maybe not so much because Salt Lake is kind of a big domesticated, it's a suburban, it's a city, it's a metropolis. That's the word I was trying not to say. It's a big major city. Yes, there's energy there, but like places like Moab, and St. George. I've never been to Vernal, um, but Moab in particular, and around the Park City area, and where's the other one? I can't remember the name of it, but there's a bunch of canyons. I remember going out there as a teenager, with our dad, and it was terrifying. I mean, it really was terrifying. Like, your hair literally stands up because you can just feel the energy and the spirits and, just all the death and stuff that took place in those areas. It I don't know, man. It's something else. It's something to be admired, that's for sure. Like, so folks listening to this podcast, like, if you've never been to Utah, find a way to get yourselves there and just, like, if nothing else, go to the tourist traps. Go to Moab and Park City. Those are like the tourist traps. But they're beautiful places. Like, they're absolutely gorgeous. The red clay, rock formations and all. I mean, to me personally, there's not a more beautiful part of the world. A lot of people like snowy mountains and rivers and lakes, and of course I do too. I love that type of stuff. But you've got all that in Utah on top of all the other cool shit, the rock formations and the canyons, and like the canyons especially. Like, and I'm not talking about like Grand Canyon type stuff. I'm just talking about just regular asshole canyons. But I mean, you can go see the petroglyphs that were carved on there by Native Americans from hundreds of years ago. Like, you don't find that anywhere else. You find that in Utah, in New Mexico, parts of Colorado and Arizona. That whole Four Corners area of the world is kind of where all that is the most popular. But yeah, I mean, have you seen any of that, like out where you're at? Do you guys ever go off adventuring and check out the
Yeah.
petroglyphs and pictographs and
There's
stuff?
actually this like one tourist spot really close by here. Uh, I remember going to it all the time when I was younger. But yeah, it's like a real mountain that has like real paintings and like carvings by real Native Americans, and it's really really cool spot that I always loved visiting. And I hope to go there one of these days again. But yeah, that's a place we would always go to. It was really cool.
Yeah, yeah, I'd like to go see it too. Maybe if I ever make my way over there and and visit, it's we can go see that. And I'm sure people are getting confused now because I'm like, oh, you live in Utah and I live in Texas, but you're brothers and you look like you're way far apart in age. We have the same dad, different moms,
Yeah,
born about 20 years apart, and didn't really have a whole lot of connection with each other growing up, but we do now. I'm thankful for it, and
yeah,
that's all anybody needs to know. Uh, but yeah, so there's that story. But yeah, man, like I would love to
yeah,
come visit that area and see that stuff because it's, I don't know, it's, you feel alive when you're, that's the best way that I can describe it. When you're in Utah, like, you feel alive. That's it literally is one of my favorite places to go and visit. I've had family in St. George for a while, since I was younger. They moved from where we lived at the time to Utah and St. George in particular. Um, I still got a cousin that lives there, but like my aunt and all that, they've moved out since. But my cousin still lives there. I'd like to go visit her too. But St.
I don't
George,
think
have you ever
so.
been there?
No.
Okay, it's way south of you. Like, you're way up north.
Yeah,
Like, you're almost by Idaho, aren't you? Yeah, you're way up north. St. George it's what is it? It's about maybe 2 hours from Las Vegas. So I mean, it's like almost down in Nevada. So it's way down at the southern end of Utah. I think it's, how far is it? Because I remember the last time we went to St. George, I was talking with your mom, and we were going to come visit, but it was going to be like a 8 hour round trip or something. Like, it's like 4.5, 5 hours
yeah,
from St. George to Vernal. Anyway, yeah, that has nothing to do with horror. That's just a geography lesson. But anyway, yeah. So skinwalkers, big thing in Utah, big thing in New Mexico, big thing in that whole part of the world. Scary as shit. Evil, evil sons of bitches. I made a movie about them. My brother was in the movie with me. Uh, Gonna make some more movies. Don't know if there will be any more about skinwalkers. Um, Gonna make some more, some more podcasts. Um, predominantly, I would like the podcast to be about all things horror, not just horror movies. So we can talk about cryptids, we can talk about horror video games, we
Yeah.
can talk about horror movies, obviously, anything horror. I'd like you to come back and be a guest as often as you'd like. So yeah, if you want to jump on this thing anytime, you just
Oh,
let me
definitely.
know and
Yeah.
we will hit it up.
Me personally, horror is something that just kind of intrigues me, like in both fiction and in reality. Because like one thing I've always like been interested in, and something that's always like just intrigued me, is just the mysteries of our world. Like I've I'm probably sounding like my character in the movie, but like it's really something that I just really love researching because like we've been on this planet for like millions of years. So many things have happened, and yet there's still so much that we don't know. Like with aliens and skinwalkers, we don't know too much about that. Who knows what the full extent of their power is, and there's stuff even below us in the sea that we just don't know and we can't reach yet. It's just something that I've always just loved to research, and just something that just intrigues me because like we don't know everything, and it's just, I don't know, it's just interesting. And growing up, my mom always said skinwalkers are most likely like evil spirits, um trying to fool like other more good, better spirits. And again, who knows if that's true or not? Maybe they are connected with aliens. It's interesting, and I love to research it.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, that's kind of what I had mostly heard about them growing up too, is that they were more like spirits than anything. And me not growing up in that part of the world, I grew up in Washington State where Bigfoot was, the big thing. That was the legend up in that part of the world is Bigfoot. Um, I could probably make a pretty kick-ass Bigfoot movie if I wanted to. Um, Maybe, I don't know. I don't know if that's something I want to tackle because there's a
Yeah.
lot of Bigfoot movies out there. There are a ton of them. Going back to Dylan Brown, his Bigfoot movie, Tahoe Joe, is. I mean, that movie's legit, dude. Like, that movie is really good, really creepy. It feels real. The way he filmed it, the way he wrote it, it just him and Mike Rock, I mean, they fucking nailed it in that movie. It is, to me, it's top notch. Like it's way up there with the greats. Um I personally I love it. Like it got me hooked right away. Like that's how I became a fan of Dylan Brown. That's the first movie I saw of his was Tahoe Joe. And then I was like, "Oh, he did this other one, The Flock, and he did The Devil's Children and all, like he did those ones too." So I watched those, and while I did like those ones, they're great movies. They're totally different. They're not a cryptid based film. Those are more uh like action adventure fiction type stuff. Not sci-fi per se, not really. Maybe a little. I don't know. I'd have to ask him what his intention with those were, but they're because I don't want to give too much away for folks that haven't seen them, but they're kind of culty. Again, really good movies, but they're not Tahoe Joe. Tahoe Joe's it's a Bigfoot one. And fun fact, and this is no secret, he's announced it actually recently. He's doing a sequel to Tahoe Joe. He's making a Tahoe Joe Part 2. He's currently in the process of character development, we'll say. I'm not, again, I'm not going to give away too much of his shit. But he's deep into character development right now, writing and working on the creature. Um, so it's pretty badass. I've had the pleasure of being able to talk to him about that, and man, I'm excited. I really am. I am so super excited for that. So Anyway, I digress again, but will I make a Bigfoot film? I don't know. Probably not, to be honest. I don't know if I want to go down that rabbit hole, because again, there's 100 fucking Bigfoot movies. I mean, you get on Tubi, and I mean, there's just Bigfoot, 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 and yeah, there's some good ones. There's some not so good ones. I'm not here to knock anybody else's creativity. I'm not that person anymore. I used to be. Back when I was just a horror fan, I was like, that movie's dog shit. But now that I know what it takes to make a movie, even to make a shitty movie, like now that I know what all is involved, even if I find myself watching a movie that I may not particularly be into or particularly interested in, I still respect the filmmaker's effort. I still respect what it took to get that film made, edited, distributed, all of that. Whether they did it on no budget or a $10 million budget, doesn't matter. There's a fuckload involved in making a film. So just something for folks to keep in mind the next time you're watching a movie and you're like, this is dog shit. I'm going to get on Facebook and just trash the shit out of it. Like, think about that just for a second before you do that somebody actually put a lot of effort into making that shitty film. So yeah. Again, my next one, I kind of want to do. Okay, well, I guess I don't mind kind of disclosing a little bit here. So I want to do either kind of like a stalker type, like psycho, creepy character type movie. Or I'm thinking about trying to do a zombie flick, which zombies it's going to be hard. It's going to be a challenge in itself to do a zombie flick because I can do it one of two ways. I can CGI in all the zombies and run the risk of it looking really shitty and terrible. Excuse me. Or I can try and find a bunch of people that want to dress up and run around like zombies for free, because I'm here to tell you I'm broke. I don't have a budget for for a movie, so I can't afford to pay a bunch of people to run around and be zombies. So I've got to figure that one out. That's kind of my main dilemma with a zombie flick. I've got an idea how I can do it without having to get hundreds of people to make a zombie horde. Like I've got a couple of ideas how I could do it. But again, it's a challenge that I just don't know that I'm ready for. Maybe in the future, maybe if I make a little bit of money on my first couple films and I can get some better equipment and things like that, and I can actually, maybe afford to pay a few actors to do something, maybe then I'll tackle it. But I think for now, I'm gonna stick in my comfort zone. I'm gonna stay in my lane. So I'm more, what I've started writing is the stalker film. But again, me being me, I want to be different. I don't want to make your run-of-the-mill, typical everyday stalker flick. I want it to be different. So I'm working on an angle how I think it's going to be a little bit different than most. We'll see where it goes. I'll talk to you more about that privately. I'm not going to put a whole bunch of that on the podcast yet. Once it gets closer to time, then I will. But for now, that's the cliffhanger. It's going to be probably going to be kind of a creepy guy movie. But again, I don't know. I'm not 100% committed to it. We'll see. But that's the direction I'm leaning right now. But yeah, man. Anything else Skinwalker related you wanna talk about? I mean, we got all the time in the world. We can cut it off now and whatever, or we can keep going with this and see what happens.
Too sure. Did you have anything in mind?
No, not particularly. I think we covered most of it as far as the Skinwalker lore is concerned. We talked about mostly where they're from, how they came to be, and and things like that. I don't want to beat it to death because there's a lot of other content out there that kind of just regurgitates the same old information about skinwalkers, and people have heard that, so I don't really want to beat that dead horse too much. I mean, I guess we could go into like Wendigos, but I don't really know much about Wendigos other than they're just kind of another Native American being it's like a cannibalistic type thing, but I think that's more like animal. I don't think that, I mean, maybe it is a spirit, I guess, but I don't know. It feeds off of, it's cannibal, but I don't know exactly like how it gets its energy and things. I don't know enough about Wendigos to really go into a deep conversation about them, but I do know they're interesting as shit. There's some good Wendigo movies out there too. Antlers is a fantastic movie about Wendigos. There's another one just called Wendigo. That's a pretty good movie. It's a little bit older. Stephen King's Pet Sematary, I believe, is I haven't seen that movie since I was really young, so I don't know all the details, but I think that has something to do with Wendigo folklore, but don't quote me on that. And then, the show Supernatural or whatever, I think there's a couple episodes where they have a Wendigo in there, but I don't watch the show, so I don't know. It's not because I'm not interested, it's just because there's like 29 fucking seasons of that show and 80 episodes per season, and they're an hour long a piece. So I just don't have the time in my life to invest because I know, number one, I know I'll get addicted to the shit, and then I'll just do nothing but watch that show, and then I'll never make another movie again because it'll take me a lifetime to watch every episode of that show.
Right.
So, yeah. So, yeah, man, we're at the hour mark now, so I think we'll go ahead and cut this one off and get planning on the next one. So hopefully our, inaugural episode of Hot Death Horror was up to snuff with the enjoyment factor. Let me know. I'm on Facebook, Dustin Tamplin. Also have the Hot Death Horror Facebook page. Email me, hotdeathhorror@gmail.com. Hot Death Productions on Facebook. Let's see. Shit. Okay, there we go. Yeah, hotdeathhorror@gmail.com. So hit me up on there. Let me know what you'd like to talk about. Let me know what your favorite movies are, your favorite horror movies, horror games, horror characters, anything horror related. Hit me up. Let me know. And we will get to talking about it in the future episodes. Dakota, thank you again, sir. Thank you for being in the film.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being on the podcast. Of course, man. Again, the invitation for you on the podcast is extended anytime. Anytime you want to come on, just let me know, and we will.
All right, sounds.
We will set it up and do another podcast. Awesome, man. Well, love you, buddy, and thank you for coming on, and thanks everybody for listening. We will catch you on the flip side. I'm out.